Karoline, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Good to see you.
So let me ask you this. What have you learned in the past, whatever it's been, 50 days, that might have surprised you about the job itself?
Oh gosh, there's new surprises every day here at the White House. About the job itself, I talked to you and so many great people who had this job before me, so I felt like I knew what to expect, but it's just been such a great journey, and it's something new every day. This president is making so much news, doing so much, delivering on all of the promises that he made in record time. So I guess the pace of the job, though everybody who had this job before me warned me, you don't really know till you're in it, as you know, Sean, how much work and preparation and time goes into it, especially when you work for President Trump, who is working literally 24/7.
So, when you work with him on the campaign, I did in 2016, and then work him in the White House, it is different. I mean, the proximity is different. You're literally feet from his office, as you know. When people ask me all the time, like, what is President Trump like? What do we not know about him? What do you answer that? How do you answer that?
It's a great question. And I think the number one thing, or actually the two things that come to mind immediately. First, he's incredibly generous with his time. We call it Trump time at the White House, as you know, because we are typically running late. And it's because the president is always giving so much of his time to every person that he meets with throughout the day. I've seen this with the 13-year-old boy, DJ Daniel, who was fighting brain cancer, who the president mentioned in his speech, and he came to the Oval Office the next day so that the president could personally see him again before he left town. I saw this 2 weeks ago with 8 hostages who were recently released from Gaza, who the president gave an afternoon to hear their stories. So he doesn't care about the schedule or the time constraints like most politicians would. He is a genuinely hospitable man who cares about people and wants to talk to them. He doesn't care if it takes 2 hours out of his day. And then the second thing is that listening ear that Donald Trump has that I don't think he receives enough credit for. He truly cares, again, about what people think, their perspectives, and that's how he bases his decision-making process off of what he believes is in the best interest of the people that he's representing. And I've seen him ask everybody in the room on a certain issue who we might not be subject matter experts on that issue, but he wants to know what people think and how they think before he makes a decision.
Oh, those are actually... I might have to steal those. They're too better than the ones I usually say. Most people don't care or know about the White House Correspondents Association. They've had a stranglehold on the White House briefing room for decades. You and your team decided to take it on. So explain why you did that and why it matters.
Yeah, well, as you know, the White House Correspondents Association is truly become a monetized monopoly over the White House and the coverage of the President of the United States in America. This is a group of journalists who have been covering the White House for decades. They started this organization because the presidents at the time were not doing enough press conferences. I don't think we have that problem anymore under this president. So the priorities of the media have shifted, especially with this new digital age. And the White House Correspondents Association has really been an exclusive group of journalists who cover this White House. They have not really welcomed other people, new media, independent journalists with open arms. And so we thought it was time to expand the coverage and determine who gets to be part of that 13-person press pool, who gets to ask the President of the United States questions in the Oval Office, aboard Air Force One. And since we have started this new process of determining the daily rotation, so many new voices and outlets who have never been part of this small and privileged group of journalists have been able to access those very unique and privileged spaces and cover this presidency. And that's very important.
I heard, at least this is a few weeks back, you guys had got like over 10,000 applications for the new media seat that you guys have dedicated in the White House briefing room. Is that how big is that number grown?
Yeah, it's more than 15,000 now.
That's like the best press list ever, by the way. I'm like,
yeah.
How do you guys sift through it and decide? Because you've chosen somebody and some really cool choices that you've had. The Blaze, you had Sage Steele. Like, is it your team come to you and like gives you 10 and says, choose from this? Like, I feel like it's like a college application. Like people should come in and say like, here's why I want to be the new media seat. How do you guys decide?
Yeah, well, there is a massive spreadsheet that we have internally of all of the applicants thus far. And we have taken a look at the list, and it really just depends on when I am briefing that week. As you know, I don't go out every day because the president is doing nearly daily press conferences, and I'm here to echo and supplement his voice. And so when we have a briefing, it's dependent on availability and also the topic of interest. If the president is making news on a particular topic, then we'll try to get somebody who's interested in that topic. So, for example, when the president signed the executive order banning men and women's sports, Sage Steele was in town. She's a very popular podcaster and a former contributor for ESPN, a journalist, a legitimate voice in the new media. And so she joined us in the seat, and that was very exciting.
It was. I mean, so was that was literally just timing? Did she tell you she was in town? Did you? I mean, because again, I thought that was perfect, right? Mm-hmm. She understands the issue. She cares about it. She's got a huge audience. So are people lobbying you? Are they calling you, say, hey, Karoline, I'm from the Sean Spicer show. I can come over in 10 minutes. Just hypothetically. Or do you guys, is it a back and forth or a little of both?
Yeah, it depends on availability. And again, it depends on the news of the day. And my team will reach out to these folks and see who's available and who can come. And then we weed out the, options then. I usually have my team in lower press. They'll give me, a handful of options, and we will determine based on the president's schedule that day and the news that we're making, who can cover that issue the best. This is not about who's friendly to Donald Trump and who isn't. It's about who should sit in that seat, who should have their voice heard by the rest of the country in regards to a specific or particular issue.
So, I mean, I got to imagine people are lobbying you. That's like, I've watched you do the intro in seriousness, because that's a big deal. Like, I think what you've done is revolutionary. And so I got to imagine you're getting lobbied, right?
I'm actually not. It's funny you say that.
Let me start right now. I will be available at a moment's notice, so you can call on us. We'll be there. Trust me.
Well, we'll take you up on that at some point, Sean. No doubt.
Has there been, again, I'm going through all the questions that I get asked when I go out, but is there a reporter or an outlet that has either surprised you one way or another, meaning they're more biased than you thought or more of a jerk? I watched the way honest to God, just deftly handle that AP reporter that was like trying to be a complete jerk about tariffs. Mm-hmm. Like, I actually found it personally insulting that he was trying to demean your understanding of tariffs. I think you handled it very maturely. You handled it professionally. I would have gone nuts on the guy, just to be clear. I would have been like, shut up. And you handled it great. But I looked at a person like that and I was like, wow, you're such a weasel. Has there been somebody that's come into your office where you're like, I actually thought you were a nice person. Now that I've seen you in a briefing or in an interaction, I think you're a jerk?
Mm-hmm. Well, our general motto in our press shop is never to trust the press, right? And there are individuals who, are cool people, nice people, I am sure, but ultimately they have a job to do and we have a job to do, and we don't trust them, right? We have to do business with them. That's the business we're in. And you have to work with them to shape stories and get favorable and honest and truthful coverage of this White House. And I believe that's my ultimate job, is to ensure that President Trump's message and the truth is getting out there. But certainly there are some characters in that room who are more likable than others. Let's just say that.
Okay, fair. What's interesting, in the Biden administration, they didn't really have many good surrogates, right? So I think most people would be hard pressed to tell you who the Treasury Secretary was. In this administration, you have an abundance, right, of great spokesmen on the economic issues: Kevin Hassett, Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick. Is there somebody who you have realized, and again, this is a positive thing, so it's not to the detriment of everyone else, but someone who you've really been impressed with that goes out and sells the president's message well?
Mm-hmm. We have so many tremendous surrogates, as you just mentioned. I just walked past our Secretary of Defense in the West Wing lobby, Pete Hegseth, who was, as President Trump likes to call him, out of central casting, right? You look at the president's entire cabinet, and one of the reasons I believe we've been so successful in 52 days is because we have so many great messengers on the issues that these individuals are overseeing. They don't just know the policy, but they know how to go out and sell it. And so, as you mentioned, we have Kevin Hassett here at the White House, who's a genius on economics. We have our national security advisor, Mike Waltz, who I think is doing an amazing job at articulating all of the foreign policy challenges that this president is currently focused on solving. And then, of course, we have Stephen Miller, who's our deputy chief of staff for policy, who's an excellent articulator of the president's vision. I had all three of them join me at the 1 month anniversary briefing, and they all did a tremendous job. It was a lot of fun. We have a great team.
Okay, it was a good answer, but I was hoping you'd pick one. When I had Steve Bannon on the show the other day, and I'll just admit how I answered this, but he said that Elon, the comms team, should help Elon Musk on some of his talking points, and I said good luck on that. But just in all seriousness, a guy like Elon, richest guy in the world, really brilliant, doing amazing work. Is that the kind of stuff where does he coordinate with you guys at all in terms of the interviews and the talking points, or do you just go, hey, Elon, you're brilliant, go do it?
Contrary to popular belief, Elon cares a lot about what the president thinks and the chief of staff, Susie Wiles, thinks, and also what our entire team thinks. He really is a team player. He calls himself tech support, and people laugh, but that's truly how he views himself. He just wants to be helpful to the president and to the entire team. He sat down with Larry Kudlow earlier this week. That was at the recommendation and at the agreement of the entire comms staff. We think Elon is a great messenger for the president, for the White House, for Doge. He speaks in layman's terms. He speaks the truth, and he gives out the facts. And that's exactly what the American people want. So we're very excited about having Elon on this team. And I, for one, have gotten to know him a little bit. He's a great guy. He's hilarious. And I think he really disarms the press because they have tried to turn him into this monster. But when you see him speaking, he's truly just a businessman who wants to do right by the American public. He, again, speaks in layman's terms. And we love having little X around as well, who's just a total character and also feels like part of the team.
Hey, real quick, you got asked a while ago, will you attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner? Any update?
I will not be in attendance at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And that's breaking news for the Sean Spicer Show.
That's awesome. All right, one last question. I'll let you go. You ran for Congress before. There's obviously a lot of talk about your future in New Hampshire. Would you consider running again in New Hampshire?
I'm not considering that, no. It was a lot of fun. I don't have regrets about the experience. I enjoyed it very much, but I'm good on running for office. I like this job much more.
Okay, fantastic. Karoline, thanks for everything you're doing. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Sean.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.